Again, I'm Abigail. I'm on the education team at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. I'm the community science project manager. And I've been here for about 3 years, and excited to really get more teachers, more students involved in a bunch of our community science projects. So we have a bunch, but if you're excited about any of the other ones, definitely let me know. Um, and I can connect you to those resources. But how this session will go is we're going to start with an introduction to community science, to the project, and then what to expect during the fall field season. And then I'm going to go into data collection and contribution, a brief overview of the educator resources, so those curriculum resources. And then I really want to leave it open for questions, idea sharing, anything like that, anything that I can answer. It sounds like some of you have some experience with this project and others maybe don't. So at whatever level you're entering this project, I'm happy to help out. So a quick background on kind of our take on community science. So our education team at GMRI, we work to create opportunities for students to engage in real, current, relevant scientific research about ways that climate change is impacting the Gulf of Maine. And one way that we do that is through our community science work, also sometimes known as citizen science or participatory science. All kind of means the same things, means that we want anybody and everybody to be able to participate in some authentic research. So we connect with scientists, community leaders, resource managers across the region who have questions about climate change, about the impacts to the ecosystems, and ones that they really need some help investigating. And then we work collaboratively to define the protocols that are appropriate for all ages, specifically appropriate for students, and help to answer those important and broad questions. Then we support educators with workshops and curriculum resources that build around these community science projects to help learners develop those scientific inquiry skills and contribute to data to these active research projects. So the goals of that work are that students are and feel really connected to the natural local spaces, that they gain some authentic skills in scientific inquiry, and that our project leaders also receive authentic and usable data. And also, most importantly, that all teachers and folks who are participating in this work feel supported. So we support a wide variety of projects throughout the year. They can all be found on our online platform called the Ecosystem Investigation Network. So if you're familiar with any of the other projects that we host, it's on the same platform and kind of the same format. During the fall season, we support some events and opportunities and communication around the Intertidal Crabs project and our Protecting Ash for the Future project, which is a newer project within the last year. And then later this fall, we'll do a little bit more focus on coastal flooding as there's some high tides coming up in November and December. But you are all here for the Intertidal Crabs. So we're going to focus on this project and how we can contribute to the Intertidal Crabs Community Science Project. So we're hoping to get as many people out as possible within this fall field season to get a snapshot of what's happening across the region. And so we'll really do some focused communication around the project during the fall. However, you can submit to this project during the entire year. We recommend the fall just because the water and the weather is a little warmer. So it's a little bit more of an enjoyable field experience. But if you really want to go out there, we've had some folks go out in the winter and it's also can be a really fun time. And as I'm going through all of these resources and everything, I'll stop at some points for questions, but if any questions come up, throw them in the chat and I'll be sure to answer them as well. So a suggested order of operations for the field season, and this kind of mirrors the curriculum resources that we have that I'll go over. But important start is to introduce the project to students. And a great way to do that this year is kind of the first time we're doing it this way. We had our project scientist, Marissa McMahon, record a little welcome video talking about the research that she's been doing, as well as just getting really excited for everyone to contribute their data. So I'll be sending that out next week. And that's a great way to intro the project and get excited we really do have scientists that are looking at this data and that are really excited about the work that students are doing. So we wanted to kind of start that connection and really emphasize the connection from the beginning. Um, to introduce the project, we also have a bunch of background lessons that I'll kind of share in a minute. And through the field season, I'll be sending some updates with some more relevant resources, some other fun videos, and shouting out some really fun observations that I see. So I'm excited for that and hope that everyone will look out for those things. So next, building some fieldwork skills. Also in the curriculum, we have some resources around fieldwork skills stations. So walking through different parts of the protocol and getting some practice with that. Um, if possible, going out into the field before doing the protocol, or at least building in some extra time so that students can have some fun kind of understanding what ecosystem they're going to be working in, is a great way to start building those skills. So like I said, I'll send some project updates kind of during this project period, and I hope to hear from you all as well, either through contributing data, through email, or we have a discussion thread on our website as well, that I'll kind of circle back to at the end. And then another part that's a little new and a little shifting, a little bit of a shift from last year is we'll have an opportunity to connect virtually with a project scientist towards the end of the field season in November or December. We've done this before where we've just kind of scheduled a date and hoped people would show up, and that hasn't really proved to work, as we know that school schedules can be really different, and you might have some constraints on when your students can chat and go on virtually. So we're gonna really try, it's gonna be a trial, try to schedule everyone out so that we can have a few different times where most classes are able to come together and actually sit and chat with our project scientist. And we're trying to do this towards the end of the field season because we want it to be an opportunity where students can not only ask questions to the scientist, but also come with what observations they've made. So we want it to be a bit of an equal playing field and equal sharing where students feel like they have some knowledge because they've done some learning and they've made some observations, and they can share what they know and what local knowledge they have. And then they can learn a few things from our scientists as well, and have that kind of back and forth dialogue. So if you're interested in any of that, I'll send a link to an interest form after this meeting, where you can indicate what dates and times work best for your class. Also, if you need any other support, so I'll be going through these resources kind of quickly through this hour that we have. But if you need any extra support, fieldwork support, we know a few people around the region who would be happy to come and assist in fieldwork. No guarantee, but hopefully we can try to connect you, or even connecting you with other classrooms. So we really want you to feel as supported as you can be. And I know sometimes data contribution, data collection can be a little tricky. So we really want to be there for you and offer that extra support. All right. So I'll get into a little bit more of the meat of what is this project in general, and why is this project important? So in the last several years, we've seen an influx of new species of intertidal crabs, mostly European green crabs and Asian shore crabs. Although recently we have been seeing some blue crabs come into the Gulf of Maine, especially in southern Maine, and New Hampshire. Um, and then yeah, they've been coming into the intertidal zone, and impacting some of our native species, impacting some of the environment. And when I'm talking about the intertidal zone, I mean the zone of the shore that's covered at high tide and then exposed at low tide. So these new species have found that the Gulf of Maine is a place that they really thrive in. So we're seeing a big abundance of green crabs, of Asian shore crabs, because it's a great place for them to live. There's a lot of food and shelter. There's a lack of predators. And they've been eating soft-shelled clams, other shellfish. They've been destroying eelgrass beds, which are really important habitats for a lot of things, but namely baby lobsters, which are big, something we really care about, I think, in Maine. And then they're competing for native crabs for space within the intertidal zone. And then also as waters are continuing to warm, it's starting to bring up some other species. So the blue crabs tend to be moving likely because of this warmer water. And there's a few other species of crabs and other fish and things like that that are starting to move up. So this project's really important in starting to understand where are those species and are we seeing new ones? So we call out these crabs specifically because this is what we have been seeing for the last several years. But if new ones are coming up, that's also awesome to know. And community science projects like this one are a great way to find that out. Because if you're all out there investigating the intertidal zone and you see something new, see something interesting, we'd love to hear about it. So the introduction of these new species has brought our research partners, which are at Manomet Conservation Sciences and the New England Aquarium. Those are our two project scientists, and they've been wondering how do populations of Asian shore crab, European green, and native crabs compare up and down the coast of Maine? Are crab populations changing over time and in response to warming temperatures? And where will Asian shore, European green, and native crabs be most abundant in the future? So we really need your help to answer these questions and hopefully maybe spark some new ones. So this is a map of where data has been collected by students up the coast. Maybe you see your town, maybe not. There's definitely a few places where we have some larger data gaps than others, but each of these points has given up some really crucial information to start seeing patterns and gaining an understanding of what's happening in the Gulf of Maine. And a lot of this data, this project was started in, I believe, 2018. So it's about 7 years of data. So we have a pretty substantial data set and would love to continue to see data come in from these areas, but also new ones as we go along. So that was a lot of beginning information. I'm gonna pause if there's any kind of questions before I go really deep into data collection and then supporting resources. I think I saw something in the chat. Yes, I will share a copy of these slides. Any other quick questions?
The rock crab, did you say that was in native or invasive?
Yep, a native crab. The rock crab and the Jonah crabs are
Yeah.
usually the native crabs that we're seeing. It's actually kind of interesting. We tend to not get a lot of native crab data. We're seeing a lot more green crabs, Asian shore crabs, and some theories are that they might be moving deeper into the more subtidal zone.
And what about spider crabs? Do you guys have those up there?
I haven't seen them.
Huh.
I don't know if, yeah, I don't know.
We have tons of them in Massachusetts now, and I don't think we had them
Oh.
here when I was a kid, so that's a change.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and in the data sheet, which I'll go into in a second, there's a place where you can put some other observations. If you're seeing other kinds of crabs, you can note that as well. All right. So I wanted to share these pictures because I think they're fun and kind of helps us explain how we're collecting our data. So the first picture to the left where you see that big group of students, um, they're all standing around this line, and that line's called our transect. And so that is just a really long measuring tape. It's about 30 to 100 meters, depending on how large your group is. And it's laid out parallel to the shoreline. So when you go out to collect your data, you'll put down that transect parallel to the shoreline, and that'll help indicate where your students are going to go along the line. And that's where they'll put their quadrat. And so the quadrat is that picture on the right. And that's the area where the student groups will search for crabs. And only the crabs that are found in the quadrat will count for their data sheet. So the quadrat's kind of just indicates the area of study in that area, in that for that group in that protocol. So along the transect, they'll get a random number. That's where they'll put their quadrat, and then that's the area that they get to search through. And then I think the middle photo is just really fun and also super essential to data collection, which is to have a good time and have a lot of fun. While the protocol is a set list of data to collect, there is a lot of room for fun and excitement. And a lot of times holding crabs can be a scary and fun thing, but then um, you do see some students just get really excited and attached to those crabs. So it's a really fun project and students tend to have fun. So I wanted to just add that as a reminder to keep that excitement going. But another important part of that photo is also that there is a paper protocol. So when going out into the field, we recommend that you print out the protocol instead of trying to rely on technology. So our protocol is all web-based. So you can use a tablet or a phone or anything like that to submit the data, but sometimes you might be in an area with less service or it's easy to easily reload a page and then lose all your data. So having a paper protocol with pencils, especially out in the water, has proven to be really important and kind of essential to this whole process. Um, the protocol is in a checklist format, and each protocol corresponds to one quadrat on the line. So if you have groups that are super excited and want to do multiple quadrats, that's awesome. Just make sure that each quadrat has its own protocol. There are two versions of the protocol. One is with images and one is without images. The one that doesn't have images is fully usable with a screen reader. So if you need that, that should work there. Copies of the protocol can be found on the Ecosystem Investigation Network. Let me drop that link in quick because I think that could be helpful. Um, all right. And I'll email all of these links as well. Um, So on the Ecosystem Investigation Network, you can find all the resources that I'm going to go over, which includes these printable protocols, ID cards, some informative videos, and then also access to the full data set. So when going out into the field, you don't need a ton of materials, but there are a few that make this a lot easier. So having that transect tape, having a quadrat. So some folks have used a PVC pipe, like we saw in that last picture, to make a 1 meter squared quadrat. We usually just cut some rope and create that, and then students will just put it into what looks like maybe a square. Some interesting shapes come out of that, but whatever you can use to kind of make that 1 meter squared area can be used there. And then random number generator so that they can know where to go on the transect tape. Buckets to collect the crabs in. We recommend having at least 2 buckets per team just so they can help sort out the crabs, move some crabs around. If they find something else that's really cool, put that in the bucket. Um, and then a ruler to measure the crabs, and then clipboard, pencils, the ID cards, the protocol, and then really important, a camera, some kind of device to take photos on. I know some folks don't might not have access to a number of devices, so even just one camera, one phone, something like that to take a photo and kind of move around with is great. So a few tips for field work. When you go out within an hour of low tide. Many crabs are found in these like true intertidal zones. So if it's a little bit of a higher tide, they might be covered by water. So it's helpful to go out within that hour of low tide. I'll also note, because I've had this exact experience, if you go out as the tide is rising, it can rise really fast and you might have to keep moving that transect back, which is totally fine. But be prepared for that and be prepared that you might get wet and you might get muddy. I definitely had to warn students before who've come in some white shoes and they're going to get a little muddy out in the intertidal zone. The ideal location to go is a rocky intertidal. So that might have some mud in it, might not, might be a little more ledge, but they're generally the crabs are found in that rocky area, under rocks, under seaweed, things like that. So there can be some real digging that goes on within those quadrats. A suggestion that's come from some other educators is they've seen some great success in assigning students specific roles in their groups. So someone might be the one taking the photos, they might be in charge of the clipboard, they might be really excited to dig for the crab. So letting those students do that. And you all obviously know your students best, so whatever feels right for that group of students, totally run with that. But I know in some cases to have a little bit more order, giving those roles has really been successful. Another tip that's come from some other educators is if you have maybe a limited number of devices or you have one device, or even if every student has a device, taking a photo of the group or of the quadrat or some number, something that can help you track where those photos are and which photos those groups go to can be really helpful. So we've had groups that have taken a group photo, taken all their photos, taken another group photo. So you know, okay, the photos in between the group, those are the ones I submit. But does run the risk. We don't want any faces in any of the uploaded photos for privacy reasons. And if we see those, we can easily take them down. But just a major note to make. And then last tip is expect that there probably will be a little bit of chaos. It's super exciting to be out of the classroom. And for many students, it could be the first time that they go out to explore the coast. So kind of factoring a little extra time for that excitement. Um, I usually, if I go out, I'll let students explore a little bit, then we do the data sheet, and then my go-to is have them have a crab search competition to see who can find the most crabs, and that's usually pretty engaging, or at least promising that you'll have time to go explore after, just to kind of, shake out some of that energy because it is very exciting. So once you have collected the data, you can now go and contribute it. So on the Ecosystem Investigation Network, you can contribute data by clicking on the Contribute tab and then creating a trip. And this trip allows you to set the location, the date, and the number of data sheets that you need. This trip will be associated with either the teacher or the group leader, as these have to be associated with adult accounts. So whatever adult is leading the group, you'll create the account, you'll create the trip, and then you give students a passphrase. And so the passphrase gets generated, and you can give the students that passphrase, and then they're able to go in and edit the data sheet. This, I think, maybe could sound a little confusing just speaking it out loud here. We do have a few videos that help explain how to create a trip, how to access those passcodes. So I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but at any time, if you need any help with that, are confused at all, we're totally happy to help direct you in the right direction. And we're coming out soon with some more comprehensive videos just of walking through the whole ecosystem investigation network, walking through some different projects. So those should be out in the next couple of weeks. Data contribution also seems to be the place where people have the most trouble. And so if you have any trouble or any frustrations, anything at all, please reach out. We're really trying to figure out kind of what that barrier is so that we can help you out with that. I'm even happy to sit online with a class and help you go through data submission if you really need it, because we really would love the data to be contributed. So once your data is contributed, you can find it and everybody else's data in this map on the View Data tab. This is also a new feature this year, which is fun to see the way that the data is all organized. You have the ability to filter by habitat, by substrate, by the date, and then you can also export the entire data set if you'd like, and you want to do some further analysis. We also have a platform that's connected that we put all of the data in that is helpful for data analysis that I'll talk about at the end. The data is also findable in the list form. And you'll notice that there's this little paper icon with a check mark to the left. That indicates that the data was validated by the project team, meaning that one of us looked in and made sure that the data that was reported matches any photos, any location, things like that. Having really clear photos is kind of key for us to be able to go in and make sure that what's being reported seems accurate. So if we're seeing that you say that you found 10 green crabs, but we're not seeing any photos of what looks like a green crab, we're going to reach out and we're going to ask, could you just provide maybe another photo or a description of what crabs you're seeing so that we can make sure that that data is valid and keep that data set really accurate and up to date. Um, yeah, okay. Are there any questions before I go into some of the curriculum resources?
I guess I have some questions, but can I ask them at the end about just like logistical advice for how to do this? I'll save it till the end.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I'll run through these resources. I'll try to be done in the next like 8 minutes so that we can get to questions with enough time. Um, so, some educator resources. Along with this project, we have a 5 lesson curriculum module that contains resources to support learning, fieldwork, skill building around the Intertidal Crabs project. These are all suggestions. There's no need to use any or all of these resources to participate, and no need to go in the same order, but this is how we've laid it out, and you can totally pick and choose whatever resources feel right for you. Um, Also, a fun note is that the curriculum was recently reviewed by our project scientist, Marissa McMahon, and she just made sure that we're talking about this work in the most up-to-date way. And we got a nice thumbs up. We have a few things that we have to go in and change some wording on, but we're excited that, yeah, we're still following kind of the same scientific conversation. So all of this is accurate, and we wanted to make sure that what we're putting out reflects the conversations going on. So I'll go quickly kind of lesson by lesson. This first lesson has some background to the project. It has a project introduction with this short video about some green crabs in Freeport. It also has a step-by-step way to go through the project page to get more comfortable with the project. Also to note, each lesson has some associated slides as well as student pages. And all of this is up on our website. It's all linked on the Ecosystem Investigation Network. We have a new learning resource hub coming out next week. So if you've ever been on our site before, it's going to be so much better and so much more awesome. So look out for that announcement next week. But for now, this is what we have. And so lesson one, it'll get students familiar with the project, the problem, why it's important, and why we're doing the research on this topic. And then lesson two is our intertidal competition, which goes into competition, how different species might have different competitive advantages. So there's an embodied modeling game as a part of this lesson. You need a little bit of space, but it should be doable within a classroom. You need all the materials are listed in the guide as well as all these printable cards, but kind of everybody gets a card. You act like your species, you roll a dice, and you're competing for resources within the intertidal zone. And then these invasive crabs get introduced, and it kind of, switches up the model a little bit, but it's a really fun modeling game. And there's some videos about the intertidal zone and about what you might predict, and some student pages again to go along with that. Lesson three is some fieldwork practice. So there's guided ways to go through the protocol. There's some fieldwork skills stations, which has you practice identification, practice measurement, look through what are good photos. There's also a fun additional Kahoot in there. So this is just getting students prepared for field work in the classroom. It can be really exciting. So it's really helpful to have preparation before going outside to really understand what you're doing. There's some folks that have even practiced it on their school lawn where they put the transect down, they put down the quadrat. So just getting students excited and prepared for what they're going to be doing out on the beach. And then this next lesson is very simple, just going out and collecting data. So what I talked about at the beginning, if you need any assistance finding a location, definitely let me know. I can point you in the right direction. You can also look at some past data on the site and see where data has been collected. So if you either want to continue collecting in that area or choose a new site that you don't see any data from, both of those are really awesome and helpful. But here you can find more links to the protocols and just more tips on going out into the intertidal zone. And then the last lesson is sharing your intertidal crabs data. So again, like I went through earlier, contributing data to the ecosystem investigation network, exploring some past data, and then reflecting on your observations. And this, yeah, this is the discussion thread that I briefly mentioned earlier. So you can use this discussion thread to ask questions, share cool observations, maybe share a story from the field, and also let us know when your data is ready to be reviewed. We go in and check it pretty frequently, but there's some times where we don't, and people get really excited to get some feedback. So if that feels like you and you want to get feedback kind of ASAP, definitely let us know in that thread, and we'll make sure to go and look at your data. And then just a final resource that I mentioned before is CodeApp. Is anybody familiar with CodeApp? Okay, it seems like a new thing. Awesome. So CodeApp is a free online data analysis platform that allows you to upload any data set virtually and easily create graphs, maps, perform calculations. It's super student friendly. You're mostly dragging the different fields into like an X and Y axis. You can perform some pretty complex data analysis if you want to, or you can just throw things into a graph or throw things onto a map. But it's a cool way to kind of look at the whole data set. And we update this every season, so it should be up to date. And yeah, it's open for anybody to use if you want to go into data analysis. And if you have other questions on that, we're pretty good friends with the folks at Concord Consortium who created this platform, so they'd be totally happy to assist as well. All right, so that's all my information. I'd be interested to know any thoughts, any questions, any problems you want to try to solve together.
Would there be any scientists, um, joining from Gulf of Maine Research Institute for some of the field work?
Yeah, so depending on our capacity and where folks are, we definitely could try to get some people out there. So definitely, I'm going to send out after this. We have an interest form for the field season, and there you can fill out what kind of supports you need, and that could include some fieldwork support. So if you have any kind of specifics, and then yeah, we could totally try to coordinate that.
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback on that because what we found last year, so we tried to do this for real with 250 kids last year. And what happened just logistically, because you know how science teachers usually end up running field trips, like we were the ones who were doing like all of it, like the buses, the lunches, the nurses, the chaperone, like so we couldn't really be fully dedicated to like the field work. And then we had some rough conditions where it was really windy and it was incredibly difficult. And yeah, I mean, we're running this again mostly as a team building thing, like in a week, but it'd be really helpful for us as a big school to get somebody out there to just be like the one person who's like, okay, we're going to make sure that we have like one transit line that's good. We thought about this year, maybe just trying to get one or two plots where we actually get good data because we just don't have enough cameras for all the groups.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would my questions are like I think like everything's written out and it's really straightforward. It's just like how to manage these larger schools, like what would be actually useful data, like how can we pare this down to give you something that's useful while still like managing all the like myriad of details that goes along with a giant school field trip. Um, it'd be so nice to have like one class, I'll just take my one class out and then it'd be easy. But it's not like that. So I'm open to anybody's suggestions on like what we could do. This year we're just going out to Higgins and we're putting out like we're going through the protocol, but we're not staying right near the tide line.
Mhm.
Because then they can get experience with fieldwork, they can get experience with taking data. We can keep a database of our own on what we find, and they'll find a lot of green crabs there. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, almost a little gross when you flip over some of those rocks and there's like 25 crabs underneath. But yeah, I'd love some ideas on how to like slowly integrate actual data. Um, so
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, just in terms of like the number of students that you have, we can try our best to offer some of our own staff and support, but we also um, know a lot of like land trusts and volunteers in the area that would probably be pretty excited to support field work. There's a group I know up in the mid coast who's having some 4-H educators come with them. So yeah, we could definitely try to help coordinate to just have more adult presence to help run that, because that sometimes, yeah, is the hardest part, to just get students to focus to go through the protocol. I do really like your idea of just getting some practice with the protocol. And I think any kind of pre-preparation that you can do really does make a difference when you go out into the field, because there's more of an expectation. Um, there's a little bit more buy-in, I think, from students when they know this is why I'm doing this project. This is who I'm contributing this to. These are questions that I have. And so I actually want to take some really good data. Um, and then another point off of that, we did somewhat of a study, I think, technically, a few years back with students, where we found that most student groups, at least like 80% of students can identify green crabs pretty easily, or can identify different crabs. So I think that that can be a little bit of a worry, that students are just going to be guessing and making kind of rash decisions as they're out in the field. But the data that we've collected from a variety of groups, they have collected pretty accurate data. So I would say, even if you're a little worried and it seems like it's a little bit of um, maybe like some fun chaos going on, the data probably still is great and we would still love to see it. Um, and if you have those photos, if you have any kind of description of what you're seeing, we'll go in and validate it. So if we're really confused and we're not sure, we'll
okay.
definitely let you know that. But
So I'm sorry.
you go on.
Oh, I was just so for example, like I mean one just logistical concern we came up with was just we didn't have enough cameras and we didn't have enough adults. Because like you're out there and like we had a windy, crazy day and like there's just like probably over 300 people and we're in charge of the chaperones too. Just like trying to get everybody to all their places and like how it goes, like all the medical concerns and all that. So swirling chaos of all sorts of people and then not having enough cameras to cover everybody just made it really hard to keep track of the data and like getting, if adults use their cameras, how to get that information to us in an organized way, like if a parent sends us something. Are you saying like if we take our own data this year where it's like maybe not right down at the shoreline, that you'd be interested in looking at it? Or
I think it sounds like you're still kind of in a rocky intertidal, even though if you're not like right up against
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
water.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I still think that that would be really helpful.
Okay.
And you can also like make note in some of the field work. There's like a field work notes spot, so you can write, we're right against the tide line. And we'll have
Oh,
that as a piece of information.
okay.
One other thing is when we're going in and validating the data, we look at the trip as a whole. So if you do only have one or two cameras, if you're getting good pictures of the different types of crabs and have it for one observation, we're assuming that students are peer reviewing and hopefully helping each other out, that if one group is accurately identifying these crabs, we're assuming that the other group probably is too. Um,
Okay.
so that can help too, where just making sure there's at least a few pictures for the entire group. It doesn't necessarily have to be every single one.
Okay.
Um, but if you have good, yeah, having good pictures of each kind of crab that you find, and then we'll assume that there's some, talk back and forth between groups and that likely everybody's identifying them correctly. If we're seeing a data sheet that, let's say they found 100 green crabs and another group only found two, we're probably going to question if they saw 100 green crabs. But if they did, which happens sometimes, we'll reach out to you, ask if this
Okay.
is correct. And if you're like, yeah, that was a really crazy group and they found 100 green crabs in their one little section, then we're counting that as data.
Okay, thank you. This is so let me see, just make sure I'm understanding correctly. So we should actually submit all of this on the form, like on the online form, but just notate that like, okay, this group was like right along the like right within the you put it right where the water is, right?
Mhm.
But then this group was 30 feet away, but still in the intertidal.
Mhm.
And then just submit the pictures that we have. I can tell you, like Scarborough kids, like they know, and we actually go through 3 days of prep and we bring live crabs into the classroom, and a lot of them go out
Fun.
tide pooling anyway. And all
Mhm.
of what we find there, I think we found one native crab there last year. It was
Yeah.
almost all green, and then some shore crabs. So I think like we were pretty confident with our identification just based on what we were finding. So we can do that and then we can get your feedback. That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Awesome.
Okay, much less pressure. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Can I just add something as far as resources? I'll piggyback on 4-H recommendation. They will not only likely offer to help you with some people to do this with you, but most 4-H offices at a county level will have boxes of digital cameras that
Mm.
they get those donated and have them on hand. They do a photography competition for their fairs every year, so those cameras are there, and you could likely as a school borrow them, just with the commitment that you'll refill the batteries or whatever. We've used those for our younger kids a couple of times, and it's sometimes gotten up to 20 cameras from our local office. So it's really nice to be able to utilize those, and then they all come back to one box. You download the information and the pictures, and you can label the camera with your group.
That is super. Thank you so much. I hadn't even thought about that. Really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and we know a few 4-H people in Southern Maine that I could send you their contact.
Great. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I've been scowling, it's because I was trying to find my Zoom screen again because I went off and tried to find the protocol, which I did. Um, so that was helpful. So the 1 meter from the is 1 meter from the tide line.
So are you talking about the quadrat?
Where the
The
transect is. The transect is supposed to be
Yeah.
1 meter up from the tide line.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So
Yeah,
the
and then typically we say like trying to put the quadrat closest to the water. If you're at a time where the tide's just rapidly coming up, which happens a lot, put it further. You can put it further away. That like exact 1 meter doesn't have to be super exact, but just kind of along that tide line, is good. Yeah.
Okay, and then so our place is outfitted with a bunch of brightly striped boots that we got at Ocean State Job Lot for very cheap. So we can get kids into the water. Do you want us to be waiting or do you want us to not be waiting?
No, trying to be, yeah, out of the water as much as you can, kind of more in those like rocky, muddy areas, but not necessarily submerged. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then is there a component where they collect the green crabs and put them in an aquarium and try to figure out what they're doing and how do they behave?
You totally could. Yeah, we've had some groups do that. And something I didn't mention that I should have, we also run a middle school journal and have some writing resources as well. It's called Findings from the Field. And so we've had a lot of submissions around the Intertidal Crabs project, where students have looked at past data, or we've had a few classes where they have brought crabs back and kind of looked at behavior. I think last year there was a really awesome presentation from a student about the competitiveness of two crabs, and they were just watching them, and yeah, it was really fun. So there is definitely like an opportunity to, yeah, bring the crabs back into the classroom. There's also some folks have eaten the crabs. So if you're really excited and want to do that, I know it makes a great seafood stock. There's a book in the curriculum resources as well called How to Eat Green Crabs, which has a few tips. Um, when we take them, we usually take them and feed them to our fish. We've had some groups who have a school garden who've used crabs for compost. Typically, I would say if you don't have something to do with the crabs, just put them back. Because I don't like encouraging just, taking the crabs and killing them to put them somewhere.
That was going to be my
But
question.
yeah, like teaching, yeah, I take more of a perspective of like teaching a
Yeah.
cycle of life, and
Yes.
that if you're taking these crabs out, do something with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tricky. That because crab discrimination. Oh no.
Yeah.
The lobsterman in my town said that crabs make lousy lobster bait because it's like feeding the lobsters candy.
Mm, interesting.
At least one lobsterman that I spoke to, I should
Yeah.
say. That's not complete data.
Yeah, there's been some really unique uses of green crabs, and it's fun to see, yeah, the experiments that people are doing. There's a place in think it's Millbridge area where it's called this guy has a farm called Green Kraken, if anyone's familiar with that area. And he takes green crabs and uses them as fertilizer, and that's kind of his whole thing up there. Wolfsack Farm down in Freeport uses them as fertilizer. There's a place that's used them. There's a distillery that's used them to make whiskey out of green crabs. Um, there's a lot of just fun uses for them. So, um, yeah.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but can we bring them to GMRI to compost or is that no? I think we were under the impression that that was an option at one point.
Um, let's talk. I think that that yeah, I'd be happy to come collect them, and we always are looking for food for our fish. So,
Okay, all right.
green crabs
Yeah,
are
either
great for
that.
that.
Okay. Or we might see if there's some kids that like have chickens that.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
they're very nutrient rich. So, yeah, great chicken feed too.
Hmm.
Thank you so much. I look forward to getting together again sometime.
Thanks. Yes,
Thanks.
we are at 1 minute, so just quick plug. I'll send out a form where you can indicate any interest for more support if you want to join any of the virtual meetings, things like that. And then what else did I have on my list of things I was going to say? Oh yeah, and then I'll add you all to our list to receive some updates. If you don't want to receive those updates, let me know. But throughout the season, I'll be sending just some extra resources and fun things that we're seeing. And yeah, I hope to continue to hear from all of you. And yeah, definitely would love to coordinate some field work and things like that.
Thank
Thank
you.